black hole. Well, let's go back to first principles over the next few years. And what changed in the last few months? Well, you had the mini budget. Well, it isn't rising, it's falling because of lower debt interest costs. And also, on top of that, they have started the work of filling the gap.
The Institute for Fiscal Studies called it entirely predictable. Former Bank of England economist Andy Haldane labeled it unnecessary and probably unhelpful.
Said that around 4,000 elderly people might die. Well, Labour initially claimed that they hadn't done a new one. Starmer even said this: "There isn't a report on my desk, which somehow we're not sure."
What are they talking about? Labour's claim of a £22 billion black hole in UK finances. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
And nowhere in that report, nowhere, does it mention £22 billion.
Now, if you've been following the news recently, you'll probably recall seeing something like this in the political coverage. A Treasury source saying there's an eye-watering black hole in the public finances. It's going to be rough. The truth is that everyone's going to have to contribute more in tax if we're going to maintain public.
In the next few minutes, we're going to break down this financial bombshell. You'll learn why these respected voices are questioning Labour's narrative and what it means for your wallet. Stay tuned as we uncover the truth about the UK's £22 billion scandal. As we peel back the layers of the UK's fiscal landscape, it's time to scrutinize the Conservative legacy. Was the economy really as stable as they claimed before the election? Let's take a closer look at their financial management and budgeting decisions. The Conservatives painted a rosy picture of the UK's economic health, but were they selling us a fiscal mirage? It's worth noting that there hasn't been a spending review since 2021. This lack of financial reassessment is troubling, to say the least. It's like trying to navigate a ship through treacherous waters without updating your map.
Like to give us questions for politicians, and Ray Bosdet, who voted for you, wrote in to say, "I thought I might regret my vote within a year. I certainly didn't think I would regret it by the first decision made by the new government. To know and understand that nearly half of that 22 billion, £9 billion, comes from decisions that your government has made."
How can you make informed decisions about the nation's finances when you're working with outdated information? The Institute for Fiscal Studies, a respected think tank, didn't mince words when they claimed that many of the current financial challenges were entirely predictable. This raises some serious questions about the Conservatives' competence, or worse, their transparency. Were they deliberately keeping the public in the dark about looming economic storm clouds? Let's consider the implications of this fiscal short-sightedness. Without a proper spending review, how could the government accurately gauge the true state of public services? The NHS, education, and social care. All these vital sectors require careful financial planning, but without up-to-date assessments, it's like trying to balance a budget with one eye closed. The lack of transparency becomes even more concerning when we factor in external economic pressures.
On some people who've worked hard all their lives, they're not wealthy, they don't have money to spend.
And they knew that the pay review recommendations would come back. What they didn't do was allocate any money at all.
Brexit, the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and global economic uncertainties all played a role in shaping the UK's fiscal landscape. Yet the Conservatives seem determined to maintain their narrative of economic stability. Were they hoping to coast through the election on a wave of false optimism? As we dig deeper, the extent of financial pressures hidden from public view becomes increasingly alarming. It's not just about a £22 billion discrepancy, it's about the erosion of trust in our political institutions. The Conservatives had access to the nation's financial data, yet they chose to present a sanitized version of reality to the public. This isn't just poor governance, it's a betrayal of the electorate's trust. But here's where things get interesting. Was Labour truly blindsided by these fiscal challenges, or did they play their own part in this high-stakes political theater? As we transition to the next part of our investigation, we'll explore whether Labour's sudden alarm about a £22 billion black hole was genuine surprise or calculated political maneuvering. Labour's sudden fiscal alarm bells have raised eyebrows across the political spectrum. The party that promised fiscal responsibility during its campaign is now painting a picture of economic of doom and gloom, but is this £22 billion black hole as sudden as they'd have us believe, or are we witnessing a masterclass in political theatrics? Let's break down this financial bombshell. The Treasury audit, now in Labour's hands, forecasts a £21.9 billion overspend on departmental budgets for the year. It's a staggering figure, no doubt, but the devil's in the details. The audit identified gross additional pressures totaling £35.3 billion, with £13.4 billion offset by reserve funds and other allowances. It's like finding out your credit card bill is higher than expected, but realizing you've got some savings to cushion the blow. But here's where it gets interesting. A significant chunk of this overspend, about £9.4 billion, is linked to Labour's own decisions. They accepted public sector pay review recommendations that were higher than the previous government's provisions. It's as if they've walked into a restaurant, ordered the most expensive items on the menu, and then complained about the bill. The timing and presentation of this black hole are equally curious. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, dramatically claimed that the previous Conservative government had covered up the true state of public finances. It's a bold accusation, one that the Conservatives have unsurprisingly labeled a myth. But why make such a dramatic announcement so soon after taking office? Andy Haldane, a former Bank of England economist, offers a sobering perspective. He argues that it would have been better for the government to wait until they had solutions before announcing the black hole. In his view, the timing of the announcement was detrimental to economic confidence. It's like a doctor diagnosing a serious illness without offering any treatment options. It's bound to cause panic. This fiscal fear-mongering becomes even more perplexing when we consider Labour's pre-election promises. They campaigned on a platform of fiscal responsibility, yet their immediate post-election actions tell a different story. Proposed cuts to winter fuel payments and other spending programs stand in stark contrast to their campaign rhetoric. It's as if they've pulled a political bait and switch, leaving voters to wonder what happened to the party they thought they elected. So what's really driving this financial narrative? Some experts suggest that framing this fiscal challenge as a black hole serves a very specific purpose. It provides a convenient justification for potential tax increases and spending cuts. It's a classic political move. Create a crisis, then position yourself as the only one who can solve it. As we wrap up this fiscal roller coaster, it's clear that the £22 billion scandal is less about numbers and more about political theater. The real shocker, the erosion of public trust in UK political institutions. It's a trend that's been brewing for years, with citizens increasingly skeptical of the fiscal fairy tales spun by both major parties. This trust deficit isn't just a minor hiccup, it's throwing a wrench in the works of implementing meaningful fiscal transparency measures. But here's the kicker, it doesn't have to be this way. Look at New Zealand and Sweden, where clear communication and accountability in fiscal policies have actually boosted public trust and improved economic outcomes. It's like they've cracked the code on how to handle public finances without turning it into a political soap opera. So what's the takeaway for us, the viewers? Approach political transitions and economic forecasts with a healthy dose of skepticism. The real scandal isn't just about the numbers, it's about the breakdown of trust between the government and its people. And that, my friends, is a deficit that no amount of creative accounting can fix.